If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in...
All right, sit down, because what just happened in that congressional hearing room is something the mainstream media is going to try to bury, and I am not going to let that happen. Kash Patel, FBI director, former House intelligence staffer, the man who has been at the center of some of the most politically explosive moments in modern American history, just sat before Congress. And when the questions turned to Jeffrey Epstein, it got very interesting. We're breaking it all down. The questions that were asked, the answers that were given, and the ones that, in my opinion, weren't answered well enough. This is not a news report. This is commentary. This is me giving you my take. So if you're ready for the unfiltered version, let's go.
Earlier this year, you granted the ranks of the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section. This is the section of the FBI that is most directly responsible for addressing political violence in our country by preventing attacks from occurring and effectively responding to them if they do. The agents in this section are the ones who stopped an individual stockpiling weapons, who planned to attack schools and churches in Florida and seized bombs made by an ISIS sympathizer in New Orleans. And instead of ensuring that this section has all the resources that it needs at a time when its mission is critical, you fired its decorated veteran FBI agents who have served their country proudly under Republican and both Democratic presidents, and you scrapped the tools that they developed to fight domestic terrorism, including the National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database.
I mean, most of that is just not true. We have 1,700 current DT-managed programs. We're up 300% in the amount of cases we brought against nihilistic, violent extremists, including 764, wishing to harm our children. The FBI and the men and women are getting after that problem set more than ever because I've unleashed them to do so. And any insinuation that these tragic occurrences across the country are somehow singularly my fault or disgusting because that watershed goes
Mr.
down to
Patel,
the
I'm
men
going
and
to
women at the
reclaim my
FBI,
time. Mr. Patel,
and they
I'm
are
going to
not
reclaim my time.
responsible
Mr.
for it.
Chairman,
I'm
I'd
happy
like
to
to
work
hear
with
a
you
unanimous
to
recant-
get them what they need.
Gentle lady controls the time. Unanimous.
First, let's be real about who Kash Patel is. Because some people on both sides of the aisle love to either crown this man or destroy him without actually understanding his background. This is a guy who was a public defender, then a federal prosecutor. He then became a top House Intelligence Committee staffer, Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and now FBI Director. That is not a lightweight resume. You don't collect those titles by accident. And here's why his position on Epstein matters so much. Because Kash Patel, before he took this job, was publicly vocal about wanting transparency on Epstein. He talked about the Epstein Black Book. He talked about accountability. He was the kind of guy that the transparency crowd was excited about. So now he's FBI director. He's sitting in the hot seat. And the questions are, does he deliver? Does he live up to what he promised? Or does the institutional weight of the FBI change a man once he's inside it? That is the question worth asking. And Congress just asked it loudly.
If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. Are we failing? Because we put 1,500 child predators in prison. Are we failing? Because we dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. Which is it? You don't like me, that's fine. But don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI that are producing record results in historic fashion to protect this country. They are kicking ass for America, and they're going to continue to do so.
And we appreciate your leadership. The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Now, Patel's main defense for not releasing more was this: court orders, judicial seals, legal constraints. He said they went to court 3 times to try to lift the seals, and judges denied them 3 times. He pointed to grand jury rules, protective orders, and the original search warrants from 2006 to 2007 out of the Southern District of Florida. Now, here's where I put on my commentary hat. Is that a legitimate legal argument? Yes, partially. Federal prosecutors, DO, operate under real legal constraints. Grand jury testimony is protected for serious constitutional reasons. You can't just dump everything publicly and call it transparency. I understand that. But, and this is the big but, one congressman pushed back hard on exactly this point. He said, those court orders do not apply to the Southern District of New York investigation. The 2019 indictment, the 302s from that investigation, are not under the same restrictions. And the question he asked was simple. Why aren't you in court to unseal those records? Patel's answer got murky there. He kept circling back to, we're releasing everything we legally can. But the congressman's argument was, you haven't tried to legally unseal the records that can be unsealed. Now, I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not a lawyer. And neither are most of you watching this. But we don't need to be lawyers to understand that there's a difference between we are legally blocked and we haven't pushed hard enough to become legally unblocked. That distinction matters. A lot.
5% than ever before.
And the FBI has also been leading operations against major cyber threat actors, including those from Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Isn't that right?
A 17% increase from year to date last year.
Director Patel, the FBI's child exploitation task forces continue to investigate predators who target children online and across our communities. How significant is that threat today, and what results have you seen under your tenure in bringing these offenders to justice?
We have, under Operation Grayskull, dismantled dark web units that are operating online, not just in the United States, but across the world, to do our children harm. We have taken into custody more suspects than ever before on those who seek to harm our children. That is what the men and women of the FBI do, and that's what they're going to continue to do. Those are the real results when you let good cops be cops and when you let us get on these platforms and expose them to the public and show them the harms of these predators on these online gaming systems and social media systems. And we need more help from Congress to allow us more authorities to do that work.
Okay, let's get into the meat of it. During the hearing, a congressman asked point blank whether any sitting or former high-profile political figures appear anywhere in the Epstein files. Patel's response? He said, essentially, the names that appear in the files are accounted for, and everything that can legally be released has been released. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a reasonable answer. But here's where it gets complicated, and where my commentary lens kicks in. Another congressman came in with a very specific line of questioning about the 302 documents. Those are FBI witness interview summaries. And he laid out something that should make every person watching this stop and pay attention. He said, according to victims who cooperated with the FBI in the 2019 Southern District of New York investigation, the one that produced a sex trafficking indictment, the 302 documents in the FBI's possession allegedly detail at least 20 men that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to. 20 men, including, and this was named on the record, the CEO of a major international bank, a royal prince, a Hollywood producer, a rock star, a magician, multiple billionaires, a prominent former politician. And Patel's response to whether he had seen those 302 documents, he said the FBI has reviewed them, but he said there was no credible information that Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. Hold on. You just described 20 individuals named by victims in federal witness interviews, and the position is there's no credible information? I'm not saying those names are proven. I'm not saying guilt has been established. That is not my claim. But the disconnect between what the congressman was describing and what Patel was saying, that gap right there, that is what should be making your ears perk up. Here's my final take, and I want you to really sit with this. The Epstein case is not just about Jeffrey Epstein. It never was. It is about whether the most powerful and well-connected people in the world, in politics, finance, entertainment, royalty, are subject to the same laws as everyone else. That question has not been answered. After years of investigations, a suspicious death in a maximum security prison, sealed files, non-prosecution agreements, and congressional hearings, the question has not been answered. And now we have an FBI director who, before taking the job, seemed to be a champion for transparency on this very issue. And he's sitting in the chair. And the answers are still not satisfying the victims.
That warrants a swift and thorough investigation by the FBI. What shouldn't be happening, however, is this administration's seeming attempt to exploit Mr. Kirk's death, within minutes of this horrible, horrible assassination, dividing us even further without knowing enough about the killer's complicated, confused political ideology and the extent of his motivation. And this week, Vice President Vance claimed that this is, quote, an extremely destructive movement of left-wing extremism, and said that, quote, it's part of the reason why Charlie was killed. He pledged to go after organizations on the left. But Director Patel, it was just 3 months ago that Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, and her husband Mark were shot to.
That's my take. You might agree with all of it. You might disagree with parts. That's the point of this channel. To give you something to think about, something to react to, something to push back on. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear where you stand on this. Do you think Patel is doing his best within real legal constraints? Or do you think the institution has swallowed him whole? If this video hit, share it. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp. Satisfying Congress. And frankly, not satisfying me. Does that make him corrupt? No, that's not what I'm saying. Does it mean there's definitely a cover-up? I can't tell you that with certainty.
Just want to convey that to you. And the vice president didn't even call on right-wing organizations to tone down their rhetoric after that horrific killing in Minnesota. And he never once spoke about dismantling conservative institutions. This week, when the president was asked by a reporter about Speaker Hortman, he claimed he didn't even know who she was. One of the most high-profile assassinations of an elected official in recent memory, and the president claims to know nothing about it, hasn't even heard of it. It was absolutely devastating for her colleagues and for her family. And I think we all can agree in this room that we have to stop this political violence. So my first question to you is, Director Patel, what is your plan as director of the FBI to turn down the temperature, especially in light of the fact that it seems like members of the administration are reacting to political violence based on party affiliation? What's your plan?
I can only speak for myself and the
Of course.
FBI. And what we are doing is, I think I mentioned earlier, we're following the money, because whatever attack you are describing, and they are all despicable, equally so, people need money to operate. People need money to conduct these attacks, to conduct these investigations. And so what we are doing is finding the people that supported this infrastructure system, because even when you say there's a lone, quote unquote, lone wolf actor, he's not truly a lone wolf actor. Something happened along the way.
I agree. And so can I just because we have such little time, are you making a commitment right now to follow where the evidence goes in
Absolutely.
investigating whether it's violence on the left or the right? Because over the last 10 years, when you look at the ideology, I want to follow up on what my colleague from California said. When you look at the data, you look at the Anti-Defamation League data, 96% of ideological motivated killings were committed by the right wing. When you look at the Institute of Justice report that she cited, it's 5 times the number that 5 times the number of far-left extremist incidents are perpetrated by far right. And it's been reported, and she mentioned this, that as of September 12th, 2025, just 2 days after Charlie Kirk's killing, that the DOJ removed that report from the DOJ website. That's why Americans are concerned that there seems to be a separate system of justice, that if you are a Republican and you are attacked, you will get the full weight and authority of the FBI in this administration. But if you are somebody serving in the Minnesota State Legislature and you are assassinated in your home, that the response is different. And I think to ignore the threats from the right or try to do a both and when there are multiple instances when it's overwhelmingly coming from the right, this is a disservice, because Americans want to know that whoever they are, whatever their political affiliation, that the response is going to be the same, and it is going to be done with the same diligence. And I'm wondering if you will commit to me right now that you will be a voice right now standing up to those voices in the administration that are adding to the violent rhetoric right now. That's what I'm asking you. Will you commit to this?
Time the gentlelady's expired. The gentleman can respond.
My voice will be through the investigations that the FBI conducts, and we will conduct them all lawfully and equally.
Now, look, I'm an opinion channel. And good commentary means I have to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. So let me give Kash Patel his fair shake here. This man came into that hearing room and took shots from every direction. Democrats grilled him about domestic terrorism. They accused him of gutting FBI resources. Republicans push him on Epstein, the Durham report, January 6 cover-ups. One congressman accused him to his face of being part of a cover-up to protect child sex traffickers. And Patel, you have to give him credit. He did not crumble. He fired back. He said, "Any allegation that I am part of a cover-up to protect victims of human trafficking and sexual crimes is patently and categorically false." He talked about 1,500 child predators arrested in 7 months, 4,700 children rescued, a 35% increase. He talked about dismantling 300 human trafficking networks. These are real numbers. These are real results if accurate. And he made a point that I think is underreported. He said they have publicly asked Epstein victims to come forward with new information. He said the FBI will run down every single new lead. Now, is that enough, given what's at stake? In my opinion, no. But it's not nothing either. And I think fairness requires me to say that.